Hello, everyone. I'm Rohan Sylvester, a recruitment evangelist with Indeed, and welcome back to today's episode of Indeed and People Matters Top Jobs in India 2.0, an initiative to help people find jobs. We all would love to be part of a company that's an amazing place to work, but what makes a company an amazing place to work? Is it a great culture or exceptional rewards or a workplace where fun and flexibility thrive? Today we're going to try and find that out for one specific company. The e-commerce industry is a massively growing industry in India. Every day, more and more retailers are making the move to online selling, while entrepreneurs are getting their start through e-commerce ventures. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming an e-commerce giant, Flipkart, who's on the lookout to hire some of the best talents in India. Flipkart is always in the news for its great practices. Over the years, Flipkart has cemented its position as one of the most sought after workplaces in India. Today, I have the pleasure of having with me Mallika Rajkumar, HR Director of Flipkart. Mallika Rajkumar is a seasoned HR Director with 15 years of experience in delivering impact collaboratively and leading teams across countries in India and Asia across key functions such as HR business partnership, talent acquisition, and employer branding. At Flipkart, she leads talent branding in university relations charters and HR for the diverse corporate functions business unit. She plays a key role as part of the HR leadership team in helping Flipkart attract, engage, and retain the best talent, and is a role model for Flipkart's values of audacity, bias for action, customer first, integrity, and inclusion. Welcome today, Mallika.
Thank you so much, Rohan, for inviting us and for having me here.
Thank you. We also have Raswinder Singh, Associate Director, Talent Branding, Flipkart. Raswinder has recently joined Flipkart to lead the Talent Branding Charter. In his role, he is responsible for building a world-class employer brand for potential candidates, as well as employee and alumni groups. Prior to joining Flipkart, Raswinder led the culture and engagement practice at Kincentric for the India and Sri Lanka markets. He has over 11 years of corporate experience. Welcome, Raswinder.
Thank you so much for the invite.
So I'm really looking forward to interacting with Mallika and Raswinder to know more about life at Flipkart and what it's like to work in one of India's largest e-commerce companies. To all our viewers, if you want to know anything specific about Flipkart, please post your questions in the comment section, which is on the right side of your screen. If you're watching this episode through Facebook or YouTube, feel free to post your questions in the comment section. We will try and answer as many as possible, so do keep them flowing in. And on that note, let's jump into the questions. My first question is to you, Mallika, and this one is a little bit more generic, but I'm hoping to hear from your perspective or from a Flipkart perspective as well. So how do you foresee the overall job market in India shaping up in the next 6 to 9 months? Mallika, can you hear me? I think we've lost Mallika. Just give us a couple of seconds while she gets back on. Raswinder, we can move on to you. I have another question. What are some of the major roles that you're planning to hire for over the next few months? Any, like what kind of numbers are you looking at? Is it large or small?
Absolutely. No, thanks for that question, Rohan. So, Rohan, I think, as you know, e-commerce is an amalgamation of various industries, right? And one of the best things about us is that, we're always able to look at the best of the talent from multiple industries. So, we are always on that lookout. I think that's something that's kept us on our toes all along. So, I think just to begin with, we are always on the lookout for key talent. I think some of the roles that we want to share with on Indeed are actually just the tip of the iceberg for us. We're hiring for plethora of roles across levels, across our businesses. We're also starting to look at newer businesses that we want to venture into, and how do we, in a way, hire the right talent for those. So maybe just to give you an idea, and if I talk about the technology stream for which we are looking to hire talent, we're actually looking to hire roles which are mid to senior sort of roles within the team. We're looking at software development engineers 3 and 4, and product designers for ourselves, which are typically folks with about 6+ years of experience that they bring to the board. So you're going to join a team that's in a way building products for the future and enhancing the experience that we provide today. Um, in addition to that, we're also looking for roles across supply chain, and in supply chain, for example, it's one of the most important functions for us, and how vast it ends up being, given that we want to cover every pin code in India as we start to look at it. So what we're doing is we're looking at very specific roles, which are like supply chain designs, which are across levels, and these are roles which in a way help us create the ecosystems which make our supply chain really tick. Now, we are also looking at supply chain operation leaders who can, in a way, help build the ecosystems in the longer run for us. So we're looking at folks with 4+ years of experience, and but across grades. So we're happy to see, what you bring to the table as we move on. As you can also imagine, categories, which are the various categories that we have folks around, and what we offer ends up being a very critical part of our business. We call them category design and operations, or we call it CDO essentially. We are actually looking to have some senior folks here. We're looking for senior managers who would help us plan a lot better, and really execute on ground, not just for big billion day, but also during rest of the year, right? And we're looking for key account managers for a large application appliances businesses, sorry, per se. So, and if I go to corporate, again, corporate is an amalgamation of everything that we do. So, right from finance, governance, marketing, analytics. So, a plethora of roles there as well. Just to round off, human resources is also something that we're looking to hire and expand our team on to, provide the best people practices that we could, and enable our teams. So we're looking to hire about 12 to 15 business and HR professionals this year within that team, and we're hoping to have a lot of HR BPs on our board to, enable the execution as well. So that's a larger idea of our roles, but that's again, as I said, the tip of the iceberg per se.
Thanks, Raswinder. That was a very exhaustive list, and I must say it's great to hear that Flipkart is hiring in such large numbers. And
Sure.
personally, since I do purchase products from Flipkart, I hope everything is you get all the best tech talent and all the best supply chain management talent to make it easier for us to even shop at times. Thanks for that answer,
Absolutely.
Raswinder, and welcome back, Malika. It's unfortunate you dropped off with the network. It's okay. I'll just repeat the question I had initially asked you. How do you foresee the overall job market in India shaping up in the next 6 to 9 months?
Thanks, Rohan, and apologies to you and to everybody who's on this call. This is the reality of what working looks like these days. So thank you for bearing with me. Um, this is it's an interesting question, Rohan. Right, your question is around how do we foresee the job market post pandemic. I don't know if we're post as yet, to be really honest. We're still in the midst of it with a hope of the post. But here are a few things of how we see it, right? We expect the economy to see a V-shaped recovery, and we're expecting therefore the job market also to return in many ways to previous levels, and not just previous levels, but also continue on its upward trajectory. The e-commerce sector itself became an essential sector as the nation went under lockdown and through the entire pandemic period. And it's fundamentally shifted the way all of us go about our day to day today, whether it's buying groceries, whether it's buying bread, whether it's buying clothes, all of that has fundamentally shifted. And with that, Flipkart as well as a company has remained focused on how do we expand, how do we grow, and how do we serve an entire new set of customers that is out there looking for these services to be available to them. And therefore, we've used the opportunity to launch multiple initiatives, such as Flipkart being available in different languages, and that's something we call vernacular. Flipkart Quick, which is having deliveries available to you in 90 minutes, and grocery as well. which pre-March of last year was something that was in a PowerPoint presentation and brought to life in the pandemic. So all of these, in addition to more ideas, are the ones that are in the pipe and launched to help us onboard the next 200 million customers. For us, through this year and the last year as well, it's been extremely important that we honor all job offers, and we also ensure that we onboard a variety of talent to be able to cater to these different needs. So, to give you an example of the numbers, we brought in about 70,000 plus direct hires for our festive season called the Big Billion Days, which I'm sure many of you experienced, and I hope many of you shopped at. Again, during the pandemic, we've chosen to launch a full-fledged new line of business called Flipkart Wholesale, which is essentially our B2B omni-channel business. And through that, we continue to see growth as well as opportunities to hire. Um, Rasvinder, I believe, just talked about some of the opportunities that are available at Flipkart. I think the point that I would want to leave the audience with is we have such a gamut of services and such a variety of I would say mini companies within Flipkart, right? That there is an opportunity for almost everyone. And it comes down to your skill set, your cultural fitment, and the marriage in many ways that we can find as we go through this.
Thanks, Malika. That's a great answer. And just to add to that, we are also seeing something very similar. Like globally, we are seeing numbers, job volumes coming back up to pre-COVID levels. They're almost there, not completely. And of course, e-commerce and tech is driving that thing. In fact, certain industries are lagging. Even then, we are seeing a lot of huge pickup in things. So for the job viewers out there, there are a lot of tech jobs available, a lot of other e-commerce jobs available. Please, so most people don't have to worry about that. Coming back to you, Malika, this is an interesting question, particularly considering this is something that has happened as a consequence of COVID. You know, there are what are the some of the major locations that Flipkart is planning to hire for? And also, now that there have been talks about the remote workforce, are you planning to open up some of the roles to a much wider remote workforce? I guess a better way to ask this question, Malika, is will you be hiring people outside the typical centers that Flipkart currently has, and from a remote workplace perspective?
Absolutely, Ron. So, the nature of our company and the way it operates is that we actually don't operate in one location. While we are fundamentally headquartered, if you will, in Bangalore, we have a variety of locations called the fulfillment centers across the entire country. So let me just take a step back, right? There are certain roles that will be located in the headquartered location in Bangalore. These would include primarily your functions like corporate, HR, or even all of our technology roles. But if we look at the entire supply chain gamut, right, a bulk of that is going to be in the location where the supply chain requires it. So we have locations all across north, east, south, west. This includes Mumbai, suburbs. In the east, we have them in Haringhatta, Dankuni, Uliperia. In the north, we have them in Farrukhnagar. We have it in Hyderabad and many more. And I think because of the way in which we are expanding, not just in terms of reaching the next 200 million customers, reaching more and more PIN codes and penetrating into India, but also because we are looking at different categories of services to offer and different business models. For example, going into the B2B business model as Flipkart Wholesale that I shared, that does mean that we will be setting up newer centers across the country. And to that extent, there will be jobs available in those locations for a variety of roles, right? Whether you're into quality, whether you're into supply chain, whether you're into security, whether you're into safety, whether you're into compliance, they'll all be available there. We will need those expertises to be able to run those effectively.
Awesome. That's a great answer, Malika. Thank you so much. And it's great to hear that you'll have locations across the country. So it gives opportunities for a lot of job seekers who who may not be in a position to relocate. I think one thing the COVID
Yeah.
situation has created is this opportunity, this expanded opportunity.
Yeah, and if I
I'm
can
gonna
add, Rohan, I think
sure.
I think pre-COVID, it would have Flipkart operated very differently, and I think it required for us to take a look at how we operate without impacting in any way the service or the customer experience at the end of the day. The Big Billion Days that we ran last year was probably the largest one we've ever done, and we did that with people operating across the country. Not just across the country, we hired talent internationally who we were not able to relocate. They were supporting us internationally as well. So the model is there. We can run something like that in a hybrid working model where some work from home, some come to the office, some are in fulfillment centers, some are around the country, based on people's choices and personal needs as well. So we've proven it last time, and therefore the confidence with which we're able to speak to it right now. And we really hope to bring in more diverse, talented people with all kinds of experiences, because trust me, that's what makes this place amazing.
That is a great story, Malika. And I mean, it is really nice to hear about that and the success that you all are able to pull out of what was not necessarily the best situation to be in. My next question is to you, Raswinder. You know that as we just spoke about the roles that you all are hiring for and the
Yeah.
locations. What are your expectations in terms of skill sets from candidates applying for these roles?
Yeah, I think, Ron, thanks for that. I think, I think skill sets are basically, the hands-on, experiences that we want. But I think prior to speaking about it, I think I just want to touch upon some of the fundamentals that we believe at Flipkart. Right? I think we hold our values very dear to ourselves. And I think maybe just talking about the fact that audacity in everything that we do, just bringing in that bias for action that we have. How are we completely customer centric and customer first? I think that's something that we innately look for, right? Um, just being, having complete integrity in everything that we do again is something that we live by. I think we that's something that we hold very dear. I think over the year and the pandemics also made us realize how important inclusion is, because ideas and values come from everywhere. And I think one of the best things about Flipkart is how well we can integrate it. So what we've added over the last year is inclusion as a value as well, and we truly believe that that's what's going to take us forward as an organization. So those values is something that we absolutely look for in every candidate we hire. I think that's the starting point of what we do. I think the other point that we quickly want to talk about is also how, when you look at individuals, you're looking at how they bring in very unique perspectives and ideas to the workplace. We want people who have diverse ideas, thoughts, and truly have a hunger to solve problems, because the challenges that we're going after are not something that's been solved before, uh, or solved at scale the way we intend to do it. So clearly, we're looking to add teams that are, in a way, going to make them inclusive to be able to deliver on the promises that we make to our customers. Having said that, then there are obviously specific skill sets that we want in each of the functions and teams that we hire, and they vary given that we are a conglomerate of industries per se rolled up into one. So I think technology, when you look at it and the experience that you want, we actually want people who have experience in distributed systems. We're looking at people who've done hands-on coding, right? Who've designed systems at scale, just so that they can, in a way, build on from where you've taken on. Product design, again, when you look at it, you want people with relevant experience in product design, if they've had UX experiences, and really looking at ensuring that, you bring in that knowledge of how do we build products for the future. Supply chain, again, we want people with an experience within the supply chain ecosystem, both inbound, outbound, really looking at how they can bring in that analytics lens, how can they help us with automation, because that's where we want to head with our supply chainers, if you right. And for example, if I talk about HR, we're really looking at people who've proven their metal with business partnering roles, right? Because that's where we want to add value to the business as we start to look at it. Again, when you look at other roles which might be around key account management, you're looking at people who have experiences in retail and consumer products. So just to maybe talk about it holistically, essentially what we value most about the individual is the background and the experience that they bring with us, with themselves when they come to work with us, right? And having relevant experiences is not a mandate. It's important, but we want to see how people bring in a lot more of themselves to work. So we want them to contribute on that growth to the next 200 million customers that we really want to grow to, and anyone and everyone that can help us continue to reinvent ourselves is whom we would like to get on board.
Awesome, Rasminda. Thank you. I guess it's more than skill sets. It's about a belief in values and a sense
Yeah,
of willing to try new things and solve problems that you're looking for. And that's great to hear, right? Because I think that's
yeah,
anything,
absolutely.
it's something
Yeah,
anyone can develop on their own.
absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Rasminda. I'm based on the questions I was just asking. I saw one question in the audience that I'm just going to pick up quickly and jump in right now. And this is to you, Malika. It's regarding a very important topic. We are a young nation of young talent, and we have the class of 2021, which is going to pass out soon into what could potentially a very uncertain environment, right? So, does Flipkart have any plans to hire freshers in general this year, or engineering freshers as well?
Yeah, yeah. So, headline, yes, without a doubt. But let me talk a little bit about the how and the why, and why that's important, right? So, um, a quick look back, right? Last year, for example, when the pandemic stepped in, there were a lot of companies that, for for all the right reasons to them at that point of time, were not able to honor offers, right? Or were not able to visit campus or needed to defer offers. Thankfully and gratefully, we were in a position where we were able to honor all the offers that we were able to make on campus, whether it was engineering, any kind of offers on campus, laterals, everything, including all of our internship offers. What we ended up doing was double downing to ensure that even though those experiences would be remote in nature, that it would not impact their learnability and therefore their future employability. And it has been extremely important. So there's Sumit on my team who runs university relations, and he took personal accountability to make sure that every intern who comes on board has that experience, and every management trainee and every engineering grad has that experience. Now, in addition to that, we did work with colleges um, for with students who may not have been able to take the jobs that they were initially offered because of the circumstances, and we were able to find homes for some of them and extend offers to them as well. So that's what we have attempted to do. Now, why are we doing all of this, right? Fundamentally, talent is the engine that this company drives on, right? And from day one, from the time Flipkart has been around, hiring on campus has been extremely critical for us. It's not about age, it's not about seniority, it's not about expertise itself. It's about making sure that we have a good variety of talent across the board that can infuse us with ideas. From a campus hiring perspective, we have audacious plans this year as well. For anybody who's interested in joining us, here are the ways in which you could. We hire in three separate ways. We hire through internships, we hire directly on campus, and we also have three or four sets of programs that we drive across colleges across the country, which are either in the form of contests or mentorship. These are called Wired, Grid, Runway, and Girls Wanna Code, to be able to bring in a variety of engineering, management, supply chain talent. If you're interested, do take a look at it. A lot of it is up on our LinkedIn site, and as and when we launch those programs, we will launch it there as well. So that's how we have these avenues available to bring in talent, Rohan.
Thanks, Malika. That's a great answer, and I think a very exhaustive way for people to reach out to Flipkart. And it's great to hear that you are all the great work you all have done in the last year as well, where you are able to honor all the deals that all the hiring that you did. So on that note, let's jump into the post hiring part. Malika, I guess the big part about joining any organization is the work life culture at that organization. What is it like to work at Flipkart? What is the work life culture at your organization like?
So I should speak from two perspectives, Rohan. I've been here for about a year and a half, so I would, I can speak from how I've experienced it as well as how we want others to experience it as well. Fundamentally, the way I've experienced it is that Flipkart is extremely powered by ideas. all the way from somebody who's joined us fresh from campus or to the senior most leaders of the company, right? If you place an idea, you back it up with your data, there is a lot of, how should I say, momentum, and there's a lot of interest and sponsorship that comes in from there. So it's important that you have. So it's important to have those ideas, place them, have the data, build your story together, and you will get sponsorship, and you will be able to move mountains. I believe, including resources.
Malika, just sorry to interrupt. By sponsorship, you mean buy-in from the stakeholders involved within the
Yeah,
organization. Is that?
yeah. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so I'm talking about multiple, right? Because in order to take an idea to reality, you need evangelization, you need sponsorship, you need people to help unblock it. You also need the resources, right? However that comes in, right? And you need that all to come together. And I've seen that happening, right? For people around me and for people in our team. I think the other piece that I would talk about from a culture perspective is Flipkart has been from day one extremely employee centric. So employees are at the center of everything that we do and we care about. So it manifests in the way we have our benefits, in the way we run our processes, in the way people kind of reward and recognize. Now, our culture has always worked on the tenets of creating an impact, of experimentation and growth through that, through working with people who are frankly smarter than you at all points of time and keeping you on your toes. And fundamentally, we are a big company with the heart of a startup, right? So keeping that entrepreneurial spirit alive, that spirit of innovation, that spirit of resilience, you'll come up with 10 ideas, 5 will get knocked out, but taking those two through to fruition is beautiful. Last but not least, I think we're very proud of the fact that we've been recognized as a great place to work recently in retail. And it's nice to get the external recognition to go with what we know we are building for the future.
That's great, Malika, and I really love the fact that you shaped your answers around the values that we're looking for, and it's more about that than anything else. My next question is very much interview related. Now, during the pandemic, everyone went into lockdown, everything went virtual, and there have probably been a lot of changes to your interview and assessment process. Can you elaborate what kind of changes you've seen in your interview and assessment process, given that everything is happening virtually now?
Yeah, yeah. So it was definitely a pivot that we needed to make, like with every company, I'm sure, out there. Prior, we were used to, having on-site discussions more than remote discussions, where we would bring somebody onto our office or our facility, have them tour the facility, have them meet with a bunch of people, and interview in person. We have definitely pivoted completely to it being remote today, even for our senior hires or for our campus hires as well. And by the way, doing campus hiring remotely is a completely new phenomenon. Nobody's used to doing that at all, right? Which everybody pivoted. So a couple of things, right? At Flipkart, our interview and assessment process is really designed to be based on conversations, right? The conversations are meant to understand the individual and the individual's background better and look for that fitment with the role as well as the company that we have. So we don't believe in stress interviews, and our objective is always to check if a candidate is a technical, functional, and cultural fit for the role that we have available. Our standard interview process is application to technical screening to understand strengths and eligibility, followed by on-site interviews over Google Hangouts is the system that we use, where you are interviewed by a 360 view, which is peers, stakeholders, as well as the hiring manager. And it would be that panel that comes together to collectively agree that this is the individual that we would want to bring in. And I think what I love about that process, Rohan, is it ensures that people are invested in the individual that you bring in and you're evaluating it fairly, holding the right bar.
Thanks, Malika. I'm going to stay with interviews, and this is an interesting one. What would be some tips you would have? What would be your few tips for candidates to kind of stand out in your virtual interviews?
Um, Fundamentally, just be yourself. Yeah. Because the kind of problems that the company is going to throw at you, right, is going to test you mentally, emotionally, physically, intellectually, and you can either be supremely charged by it, or um, or sometimes not, right? And that's what all the jobs kind of throw at us with from a challenges perspective. So, my biggest advice to folks is just be yourself, because that's what endears you to the individuals in front of you and allows for a very transparent conversation to take place. So, in that light, right, and in that vein, here are a few things that we would say, right? Be prepared. It's important that you know your subject and you're able to speak to it well. In addition to being prepared, it might require for you to look back at your experiences and think through examples, because our interviewing process is behavioral based. So you would want to understand life examples that you've gone through to be able to understand if you've gone through that and stretch accordingly. Um, don't hesitate to ask tough questions, because curiosity is what is valued deeply. So ask questions, do your homework, ask elements that will pique your interest. Do your homework on the interviewers as well, right? Their experiences, what they've brought to the table. Um, it's very important that what we look for rather is the ability to think things through. So completeness in your answer is important. So don't expect us to take an answer and then not ask probing questions, right? We will go deep to understand the completeness of the experience. So do be prepared to that extent. Um, and like I said, right, just be yourself, be authentic, be candid. We are who we are. We're flawed human beings, each one of us, right? But we welcome that, and we look to not just bring in people who have supreme experiences, but we know the challenges, and we look to help them build themselves through that process, and invest in them as well. And then, just from a tactical transactional perspective, it's pretty video on meetings, right? So just be video prepared and video ready. But it's
Exactly.
fine if you've got dogs in the background and kids in the background. We've all got the same situation going.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've all learned from 2020 is a little bit more empathy for everybody's situation, right? And I think that's coming through in interview processes as well. But yeah, I think it's a really great answer that you gave, Malika. And if just to pare it down to 2 points for the audience is be authentic and be prepared if you want to clear a Flipkart interview. On that note, I'm just going to talk about inclusion and diversity, two things that are very important in this day and age. I was recently, reading articles about how the diversity levels are going down. It's not the greatest numbers that we've seen in the past few years. And I know a lot of organizations have that vision of building on their diversity, building on their inclusion. So, what are some of the things that you're doing to make Flipkart a more diverse, more inclusive place to work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rohan. And I know, I think Raswinder alluded and shaped it very well in his earlier piece, right? I think a year ago, our values have been audacity, bias for action, customer centricity, and integrity. And it has been a very conscious ad to include inclusion as part of our core sets of values. Now, the way our values manifest is it is manifesting in the way we hire in our talent acquisition attraction processes. It manifests in the way we develop people. It manifests in the way we reward for performance, and therefore across all of our people processes, right? And therefore embedding it into our values is an important message that this is no longer good to have, right? This is a must have for us, and we are on that journey to make it a must have. There are a variety of programs that we have started, and we are on the journey of having. So when a lot of times when you talk about diversity, it's about women, right? But for us, diversity is in multiple occasions. It's on bringing in people with diverse backgrounds, bringing in people with diverse experiences, and finally, at the end of the day, it's diversity of thought and knowledge that we want to kind of espouse. So we have a program called EDAB, which is a program that we launched pre-pandemic last year to allow for opportunities for people with disabilities to work with us in different kinds of roles. And that's been a very successful program. A year and a half ago, we did not have significant women out there in functions like delivery or security. And we've had to recreate our roles, redesign the way those businesses operate on a day to day basis to have women in our workforce at a wishmaster level, at a delivery level, etc. There are programs to bring women back to work. So we have a program called Flip Forward, which is fundamentally intended to set aside certain roles and certain hires, right, that we will bring in through this program. They're essentially people who have been on a career break for a long time or for whatever reasons have been on a break and want to come back. The program that we recently launched on Flip March is to bring back veterans from the armed forces who may have retired for their own reasons from the armed forces and who are looking to get into the corporate world. So we have that program that we recently launched. And then fundamentally ensuring that inclusion as a value remains embedded through all of our people processes is very critical. And these therefore translate into also joint ownership between not just HR but also HR and the business and business managers as well.
Thanks, Malika. That was a very clear answer, and I appreciate you bringing up that the types of diversity that you all are looking for is not just gender diversity, but it's diversity of thought, and there's value in that. I think there's a lot of studies that show diverse teams and diverse organizations are more not just more productive; they are much more beneficial in the long run for the organization. Uh, my next question, what are some of the benefits and programs that help Flipkart empower its employees and also recognize their good work?
So I think Flipkart's always taken a lot of pride in our benefit programs. I think from day one, because we've always said that hey, we're an employee-centric organization, and we've always placed the needs of our employees um, at key decision-making points throughout. So if I look back, right, I think years ago, Flipkart was one of the earliest companies to move to a 6-month maternity leave policy when it wasn't even mandated by the government, right? So that's the, if I will, that's the start from a intent perspective. The way it manifests today is when we look at our benefits programs, we have something called flex pen, which therefore allows for the entire benefits kitty to be benefits and insurance kitty to be modified based on your individual personal situation. So your insurance can work based on whether you're single, can work whether you're, a family of 6, it can work whether, your dependent is your pet. There are a lot of different versions that come in, but it's catering to different people with their different personal choices. The other piece that I can talk to is just the way we construct our programs from a compensation perspective. We are, we believe in positioning ourselves well in the market. We also believe in disproportionate wealth for our high performers. And you see that manifested in the way our compensation structure is linked to performance as well over time. What else can I tell you? I think recognitions. Oh, I forgot. We just completed our annual awards on Friday. The first time we did it remotely, but rewards and recognition is something that we hold very dear and a matter of great pride. So we have instant recognitions. We do the awards on a quarterly basis. We just concluded our annual awards, which was a set of awards given across the entire company for business excellence, innovation, CSR, um, value ambassadors, culture champions, all of that. And that was a moment of great pride. There's a lot that we offer in this space. I think, Rohan, it really depends on what you want and what you care about, right? If you're a powerful planeteer, we have strong CSR programs, and we'd love to include people with their ideas to be able to build that out more. We have a lot of hobby clubs available that we actively use to energize people during Big Billion Days and just kind of propel the entire energy and youth on campus. So there's a lot that we have to offer to folks, the intangibles. Yeah.
That's great to hear, Malika, and congratulations on being able to pull off that rewards and recognition virtually. I'm sure a lot of people would have been happy that it happened. My last question before I jump to a few audience questions, and this one's a little tough, and I'll explain why it's tough. If you had to call out just three things on why a candidate should join Flipkart, what would they be? And that's why I said it's tough. You have to give me only three things. I'm sure there are a lot, so but I'm gonna ask you to restrict yourself to three.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so let me think about it, right?
Sure.
So, if I had to call out three things, right, on why someone should join our organization, number one, right, at Flipkart, we're constantly moving forward on our way to discover and onboard the next 200 million customers, right? That's where we're heading from a business perspective. So this means that we're constantly innovating and creating new constructs. And while the world has gone through tremendous upheaval, right, we launched new services in Flipkart Wholesale, Vernacular, Supermart, and many more. So, in that background, right, there are three things that I would call out. Uh, if you're someone who's looking for a fast growth environment, and what I mean by growth, I'm not talking about just promotions and that aspect, right? Somebody who's wanting to learn and experience and grow, Flipkart is a place where you can create massive impact that you can see our customers using on a day-to-day basis. So number one is impact. Number two is in the context of the kind of work that we do, it's scale and complexity within which we operate. So if you're someone who likes taking ownership and challenging problems that probably have not been solved for, so if you like that, then Flipkart's entrepreneurial culture will truly make you feel at home. So that's the second. And the third is, I think we are constantly looking to bring in people of a variety of backgrounds and experiences. And if you want to learn from the best, learn from different people, then Flipkart's conducive environment where you can maximize yourself is the reason why we would put as number three.
Awesome, Malika. That's really great. I'm just going to jump into quickly a couple of audience questions. And this is a very interesting one. And I think this had something to do with what Rasminda was saying. Flipkart is looking for value in candidates, or looking for values, is what I think you mentioned. Can you, any one of you, elaborate on this a little bit more? Like, looking for values, what kind of values, and what are you looking for?
Rasvinder, do you want to
Uh,
take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I can pick that, Malika. I think Rohan, I've been here just a couple of months, right? So maybe I can talk about what we've seen. I think what I've actually experienced is our values, which are A, B, C, I, and I. Essentially, that's how we put it out. I think one of the key things is audacity is one of the biggest values that we live by, right? Which means that what you have to do is always going to be a mountain to climb on a daily basis, because the challenges we solve for are in a way, challenges that no other organization of our scale kind of picks up. So I think just that whole mindset of and just valuing the fact that we're going to be looking at things in an audacious manner is something that we want people to come in with. So you want people who've taken challenges on which are larger than themselves, not solved by themselves, but solved as an organization or as a team of people. So I think audacity is something that we really look for. Two, we are an organization that has a very focused bias for action, which effectively means that it's great to have strategies and great to have thoughts of what can be done, but unless until executed and it really benefits the larger set of colleagues, consumers, and any cohort that you're trying to impact, it's not fruitful. So I think just that bias for action in terms of ensuring that the translation of words into action is at its peak. So I think that's something that we again look for. And third, when we say consumer first or customer first, we necessarily just don't mean our customers, because obviously we do exist for them. But I'm saying every stakeholder group that you can impact positively, right? Like, so for example, inclusion is if when you look at bringing diverse ideas, purely because our customers are as diverse as we are. And hence, it's important for us to be able to bring in those customers to raise their voices internally so that we take them externally. Integrity is critical because you've seen how an organization needs to build its foundation, and we believe there is no substitute for integrity when it comes to a workplace, and I think that's something that we innately live by. And I know Malika has touched upon inclusion in a lot of depth, but um, everything and anything that we do, I think would not succeed or would not succeed as well if we didn't get in those diversity of thought. And with that perspective, it's important that we kind of bring all of it together, right from our hiring to the entire journey that an employee would go through. So hence, those are the values you want. You want people to bring themselves, but bring themselves with these attributes and elements to add value to the organization. I hope I gave you an answer that you're looking for.
Yes, Raswinder, I think that was really exhaustive and made it very clear what, as an organization, what is Flipkart looking for within candidates who want to apply. And as an advice to candidates who are watching us, if you're going to apply for Flipkart, please go through their values, understand what they mean, and see how you can internalize that before applying. My last question, and this is a little bit of a meta question. There are a lot of HR, TA, and talent branding professionals probably watching us as well. For them, can you maybe talk about how this role of talent acquisition, talent branding has changed during the pandemic? And are there any new skill sets that they should be learning as professionals post this pandemic?
That's a fantastic question. Raswinder, do you want to take a shot at it and I can add on if any?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what in my head, and this is because I'm looking at it at much broader lens, right? I think what we've done is we've started to empathize with people when it now comes to how they look at it. I think that whole straight-jacketed approach of saying hiring is about fulfilling numbers and branding is about putting yourself out there seems to have still present, but taken a bit of a backseat. By that, what I mean is, I think talent acquisition as a function is now starting to say, okay, what do I do to make an impact with people? Which means that how do I get the best talent from the best sources, but make sure that I'm doing it in an empathetic way where I can now empathize with who they are. So the whole restriction of maybe locations in a way takes away a lot of that brand which would have come to say, okay, you have to be here, right? Because we worked virtually for a year and we may continue to do so in the future as well with hybrid workforce model. I think with branding also what's changed is that no more is it just about saying, okay, this is who we are. But given that everyone's virtual right now, it's a very fast flow of information. You don't even have a physical space. It's all virtual today. So I've actually started to see that if you're not making on ground progress, but just talking about it externally, it's going to fall flat at some point of time. So truly thinking through what impacts your brand, what makes your brand successful, what is it that you really want to drive as an outcome, will absolutely be what you should show outside, because it's a much smaller world with Zooms being the medium of conversation than anything else. So I think for me that's how TA and talent branding's evolved. If I were to just look at it over the last year or so. Malika, thoughts?
No, I think very well said, Raswinder. I think as a function, also it's interesting, right? And this, Rohan, you and I were talking about this offline before we came on, saying that the investment of it is also shifted, right? So Raswinder talked about beautiful elements of how viral looks and feels very different today,
Yes.
right? Post pandemic. But if you look at the function, and if you're a talent branding professional, you want to invest yourself in this function. Number one, what was a part-time job that got added on to somebody's role has shifted, right? There are more full-time jobs out there in this area.
Yes.
And that is because we are no longer talking about branding just from a perspective of filling requisitions and attraction. It's not just a talent acquisition game. It is about your entire narrative, your entire story that is backed by internal data and experiences, to tie together the beautiful point that Raswinder took. Which means, as a function, what you're investing is skills of understanding the entire HR employee life cycle. having a very strong outside in view of what is happening in the market, what are new trends, being able to be abreast with technologies that are available to amplify your message and also structurally solve for process improvements that you want internally. Extremely close collaboration with your public relations teams, your internal communications teams, your marketing teams. No matter how you're structured, structure is a doesn't matter. No matter how you're structured, your narrative needs to be one. Your story needs to be one, and it's backed by data. So I think, therefore, the ability to collaborate across boundaries to get your stories to life, and the ability therefore to take those stories, bring that back, and show the mirror to the rest of the organization, saying we want to be this, but this is what people are perceiving us to be, so let's go fix this internally, is also important. So I think these are all the skills and elements that have that I think in many ways have been in the ropes for a while but have come to the fore in the last year.
Thanks, Malika. Thanks, Aswinder. I think both those answers were phenomenal, mainly because it's showcasing the fact that talent branding as a career option is got a big future. And I wanted to just talk about something Raswinder was saying, where he said, what does employer branding really mean? I think gone are the days where we put pictures of a fancy looking office because we're all working from home. We have to actually talk about the values. We actually have to talk about what makes us great to work for. And I think that's the future of employer branding as well at some level. So with that, we come to an end of today's session. Thank you so much, Malika and Raswinder, for your time and for your answers today.
Thanks so much, Rohan, for having us here.
Thank you, Rohan. It's been a pleasure for
Yeah,
both of us
thank
and for
you.
the organization. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we all have got great insights into what it's like to work at Flipkart and what it takes to become a part of Flipkart. For the viewers out there, if you want to apply for jobs, you can log on to Indeed. You should be able to find jobs at Flipkart. Go ahead. If you think you've got what it takes, please do go ahead and apply. That's all for now. With this episode, we will be live again at 3 p.m. today with two leaders from Intuit. So please don't forget to tune in then as well. See you shortly and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.